Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Integrating Hope Narrative Therapy Sessions. I'm Andrea Wilson, your Tend Her narrative therapist, and this is our second week of doing integration work. And hopefully, I saw many of you last week, but for any of you that weren't able to join us, this is the session where we work on integrating into you the personal, the particulars, the way that this work that we're learning about in Betsy's Monday night classes can come into your life, into your heart, into your soul, into your body. And so these Fridays sessions, or whenever you watch them, are all for you. And we use writing. We use writing as the way to bring this into your subconscious and into your conscience. And as I talked about a little bit last week, writing has been a central part of human communication for centuries, but in many ways, we were not fully aware of the full human potential of using writing in working with our own psychology. And so my work in my own private practice, A Right Mind, and my Living a New Story program is really about helping individuals work in the subconscious and the conscious by finding out what's in there and then working with what's in there to try to craft and live into a new story. And I'm going to share some of that with you again today, which is working on really a greater and more in-depth integrated understanding of some of these concepts that Betsy's taking us through on hope. So this week was the week of the body. And there's a lot to share with the body. And it's interesting because, last week we talked about the resistance. And I'm wondering, how did that go for all of you? How was it to write your resistance as a characterization? How was it to write about her, to describe her, to see what her habits are, sort of what she's up to? I hope that you were able to discover some maybe interesting patterns, maybe notice some things you hadn't noticed before. Narrative writing, reflexive writing is really about just letting it out and not overthinking it. We're not trying to write readable stories or, perfect paragraphs. We are trying to find out what's in there. So hopefully when you got on that page, you started to find out a few things about your resistance. And the mind is, the mind is a funny thing because it will play tricks on you. And so, if someone is to ask us a question that might seem like a threat or a criticism, if someone were to say to me, well, Andrea, what you're resistant, my first natural inclination is to say, no, I'm not. And that's every human's inclination, right? And we train ourselves maybe out of that or into a calmer nervous system or into communication tactics with others. But it's just a natural response when a threat is shown to us that we're going to put up a defense. Well, the great thing about this writing is you're in a safe place. You're with yourself. It's your journal. Your journal is hopefully private. So you can relax into a way that allows you to bring up more truth than maybe you've ever let yourself say out loud before. And so I really want to encourage you that these journals and this work be a place where you create safety and you allow yourself to go there. And that go there might be bringing down some of those defenses and allowing some of your truths. Um, it has taken me many years to be able to really see myself and my patterns, my neurological patterns, how that affects relationships, friendships, how I clean or don't clean my house on a specific day or in a specific way. I mean, everything about my life. Studying psychology, studying the mind, studying the patterns of stories, studying neurobiology has helped me understand that so much of this isn't personal. And when it's attached to a story of, are we valuable enough? Are we good enough? Are we enough? It feels personal. But when we start to see it more as the result of our neurobiology, as patterns that have to do with, as Betsy took you through this week, epigenetics, intergenerational trauma, um, so many moving pieces of our own inherited and experienced, lived, learned life, we can feel less threatened about those things. And so we don't even have to discuss them yet with anyone else. No family, no partners, no friends, just you and your journal. But it's a place where you can start looking at this differently. And I may have mentioned this last week, but I really like to tell people, be the anthropologist of your own life. So, put on your little hat because you are going on an adventure inside of you, and you get to learn why you are the way you are and even what you are, because so many of us have never had the questions asked to us. And I think women in particular, as caretakers, probably are the last ones to be asked. So here we are. I'm Andrea, and I am asking you, let's get to the important details about who you are and what you think, because this is your time. So the body, the vessel, thinking is the mind. The body is the feeling and the sensation. And Betsy talked to us about how the body is a truth teller. That the mind can lie to us, but the body is, that neurological reaction is coming from something different than having gone through here and made a decision based on, values or opportunities. The body's reaction is coming from a place that, well, you could say it's from a lot of places. And there's some philosophy there that I won't, go into at this moment. But we'll just say that when our bodies are aligned and speaking to us in ways like Betsy demonstrated Monday when she did the rocking, there is a trust relationship there that is developing and can be continued to develop that's truly miraculous. And in many ways is absolutely, rooted in energetic truths that we are only just beginning to understand. Again, so much of what my work is, what I'm so passionate about, is finding out what these energies actually have been telling us all these years when we were so concerned with the external. So one of the examples Betsy gave this week, and I love that she used this sort of metaphor, she called it the spell of the ideal. So your first writing prompt is to think about that spell of the ideal. And if you remember, she gave it in the context of, in what way have you been living your life and therefore your body and sort of running around in your life, keeping up with some ideal idea of yourself? So an idealized version of you as a woman, as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter, as a friend, as all the things. What has that been? And for all of you, it's probably different, because we all bring these different stories of which of those things have an imprint in our mind of the way they should be. But this is an opportunity for you to write about that. And there could be more than one spell. You could have a spell of the ideal, partner or wife that looks a certain way. But then maybe when you think about other places that the spell of the ideal is part of your life, there's even more. And this could include, you know, pressures, expectations. It could be the spell of the ideal and the way to act, the way to hold yourself, the way to look, the way to be, what to say, how to serve, not serve, whatever those things are, you're going to know. But your first prompt, write about the spell of the ideal that you have been under. And if you want to pause, this would be a good time to take a little pause. All right. So, our next prompt is connected to this one. So, in the first prompt, when I asked, what spell have you been under? I think it's very likely that you might have written about ways of being. So, the examples I gave being more um, like the social lens of things. The second question is a biological lens of things. So the question is, what does a day in the life of the spell of ideal on you feel like? So in this prompt, I'm wanting you to use words that describe what it is in your body. So think of the five senses, right? Touch, taste, smell, sight, and hearing. What is the spell of the ideal? What does it feel like to be in you? What does the body do? What do you experience inside of yourself? What is it? What are the sensations? And are they rapid? Are they difficult? Are they, well, I'm not going to give you all the words yet because I'm going to give them to you in the next prompt. But in this one, just to begin with, before I've given you any sort of clues, what does a day in the life under your spell of the ideal feel like? I'll give you all a moment. Okay. So what we're essentially talking about when we talk about the spell of the ideal and the body is we're talking about getting to a place of nervous system dysregulation. And you may remember Betsy showed you that really beautiful picture of the tree beside the human nervous system. Whew, that's powerful. I think I might frame that for my office. What we've discovered is that what we've long called mental health is actually completely related to the entire body, because that vagus nerve and that whole neurological system goes all the way through you. And your mental health is affected by more than your mind and your thoughts. That nervous system and the amygdala and all those pieces working together create a physiological experience for you where your quote unquote mental health, AKA the way you feel, is a full body experience at times of things that don't feel good. So here's some examples of what you can feel like neurobiologically when you're dysregulated. The first one is that your eyes are darting. So a person in a calm, regulated state can hold your eye contact. They are sitting still, they are present in the body, and their eyes can focus. When we are dysregulated, um, the eyes not only dart, but we're also often looking for more things to do. So when you're sitting still, they could dart, but you might not even ever sit down because in your dysregulated state, you might go into a hyperfixation on cleaning or work or things that are keeping you active. So I thought it was important to share that even the eyes darting can be hard to pick up on because you might just not be holding still enough to realize. Another one is the breathing. So a dysregulated person will breathe more up here in the chest. And you hear when you get more dysregulated, that kind of gasping sound. It's because you're not bringing that breath all the way down into the belly. Now, interestingly enough, the yogic breathing, that ujjayi breath, or even the box breathing that they encourage us in the fours to pull it all the way down, part of what that's doing is when your abdominal cavity expands, the vagus nerve, remember the tree going all the way down, also can be triggered in a good way to relax. So many of those body movements of yoga and the breathing that go with them are actually working with the body in this trying to re-regulate you. Okay, more examples of what can happen neurobiologically. So we talked about eyes starting, uh, shallow breathing, so irritability, heart rate rises up, Also, same with impatience, right? Low breath, shallow breathing, heart rate up, obviously your pulse is up. You might have a temperature rising. So, hot flashes are real in perimenopause and menopause. Boy, do we know that. But in this case, your biological experience will be that you're kind of losing control over the temperature of your body. In other examples, Betsy mentioned numbing out, and numbing out is a big one. And something really interesting happened. My mother and I watched Monday's video together, and when it was over, she turned to me and she said, "Okay, great, Andrea, but how do you know when you're landed in your body? How do you know what that feels like? How do you know when you're talking to your body and it's listening and you're sort of in sync with it?" And so we're going to talk about that a little bit in a minute, and there's going to be some prompts with that. But one of the things that I talked to her about at that time was one of the, if you have been someone who has spent a lot of their life working from up here, this is going to take some practice and some discovery. And so that's why this writing piece is, we can't all, Betsy and I and the team would love to be in the room with every single one of you. But being that there's 1,000 plus of you, what we've designed for you is sort of to teach you what it is. And then in the integration and some of the other pieces to help you track yourself. And so writing, about this feeling or thinking about what it is to be numb, what it is to be moving so fast in your life that you're not present in the body. Some of this stuff you're going to have to discover, and the writing is the place where you can look for clues. So your third prompt is, what is dysregulation to you? And this may be very related to number 2. But I think it's important for you really to look at this a little more deeply. Like when you think about yourself in a rushing state, in a worried state, in a flustered state, in, an upset state where you just don't feel like you can get yourself, quote unquote, under control. What does that look like? Uh, in terms of the the neurobiological pieces, I forgot to add constipated. So there you all go with that one too. Which, by the way, Betsy always tells me that yogis talk about their poop all the time. I cannot believe I just said that video or that word on a video, but I feel like it was a step for me. I'm working on my comfort level. I'm an auntie, not a mom. But my sister is the same way. We always talk about how we just weren't quite brought up that way. So look at me go, ready to support you in your whole body, and even use the words. Okay, so we've understood and written about the spell of ideal and the way that looks in our life and acts, the way that feels in our life, and then specifically what dysregulation feels like. Now I'm going to try to help bridge you into a comparison. So again, you're the anthropologist of your life. When you go back to these notes, you're going to have the first 3 to compare to the second 2 and start kind of drawing some conclusions. So the fourth prompt has to do with this concept of the wise body that Betsy taught you about. And I want you to allow yourself to use your imagination in this fourth prompt. So you're going to think big or wide or opportune. You're going to allow, okay? You're going to permit yourself to imagine, because your imagination is the pre-creation of what eventually can come into your life. So you first have to envision it. So I want you to write a story of you in your wise body. And in this story, you're a character and you can be doing anything. But with everything you've learned so far about sort of what's not the wise body, I want you to imagine what does a grounded, embodied woman, you, look like when she's in her element, when she's been able to land in that place, when she's breathing in a healthy way, had a good night of sleep, focused, feeling strong, vibrant, rested, just flourishing. I want you to write a story about what that looks like. And you can write that story as aspirational as you want. So if you want that to look like you're on the island of Sicily, you write that like you're on the island of Sicily. And if you want that to look like you are um, in your garden, and planting and just smelling your roses and drinking a cup of tea, wherever you can imagine, I want you to write a story about you in your wise body. I'll give you a moment. Okay. For for our final prompt, we're going to go again from the sort of describing the scene and the character in the scene to describing the feelings. So, prompt 5. What would it feel like to be the woman that you wrote about? So, what does she feel like in her body? And I want you to think about this not only from the kind of opposite descriptions of some of those negative neurobiological experiences earlier, but I want you to also think about what can she access? I know that each and every one of you have had some moment in your life when you've seen the glimmer of yourself. You've seen your full potential. You've seen your abilities to create, to make, to manifest, to divine something into this life. I want you to think about possibility. And in that possibility, what does it feel like? What does it feel like to be able to access everything that Spirit has given you because you are in you and not ahead worrying, not up here worrying, not over here to the side avoiding, maybe disassociating. This can be disassociating too, but you are in here. So you've got your story about you in your sort of most flourishing moment. And then you've got a secondary kind of description story or paragraph about what that character you gets to feel like. I hope that these prompts, after you're done writing them, give you a sense of, to answer my mother Mary's question, what does it feel like to be in the body? Because you'll be able to look at your notes and go, well, I know what it doesn't feel like, and I know what I don't want or what I'm trying to work with. But I also have this vision for what it does feel like and what I'm working towards and what I want to practice. And every one of us practices this work all of the time. I mean, one of the things I love most about working with Betsy is that we as a group have such an honesty about the journey and that this is all of our life's work. And it is my life's work, and I am in the work and in the practice with you. So I want to bring us to a close today by telling you how proud I am of all of you for taking the time to do this writing. I know that, there's plenty of things you could be doing with your day, but I want to tell you what a joy it is and what amazing steps I think that you're taking for yourself, for your families, because we know this all ripples out, for women, for humanity. Our healing is our greatest work that we come here to do. So well done, all of you. And I will see you next week, same time, same place. Happy writing.